In this episode, secrets of prophecies and prophetic dreams in the culture of nomads. People have always wanted to know more about their future. Many of us believe that there is a certain scenario of life that was written long before our birth. But at the same time, if you look into the future, you can avoid some mistakes or troubles. History knows many examples when certain predictions came true. But what it is, coincidence or supernatural ability of the seers? In the culture of many nations, there have been always people who claim to know the future. Rulers consulted with them, ordinary people came to them, often they decided the fate of entire nations. Many legends are composed about them, and their life is shrouded in secrets. Bible prophecies about nomads.
Одним из ярких пророчеств, касающихся
One of the brightest prophecies regarding the nomads coming from the mouths of neighboring peoples is the prophecy of Jeremiah. How were prophetic dreams influencing the fate of empires? Any Khan, any ruler, he always had fortune tellers, foretellers, interpreters of dreams. The main prophecy of Kazakh Nostradamus. Among the many prophecies of Monke, one is very frightening. How did the foretellers influence the history of the nomads? Who could become clairvoyant, and what does official science and history say about this? Watch all this right now.
В истории есть немало фактов, когда предсказания о будущем сбылись.
There are many facts in history when predictions about the future came true. Moreover, these were not just plans or calculations, but revelations received in some magical way. Subsequently, these predictions were surrounded by rumors and various legends. My name is Andrei Slozhin, you're watching Time Puzzle, and today, together we're going to learn something about the prophecies in the world of nomads. In each culture, there was a special category of people different from their other tribesmen. Shamans, healers, oracles, clairvoyants, they had many names. They, as a rule, did not obey the generally accepted rules of a particular society and often enjoyed special privileges. Arman Muhanbetov devoted many years to the study of history of nomads. He does not doubt the importance of the prophecies in the life of the ancient steppes.
предсказания, пророчества сопровождали кочевника-степняка.
Predictions, prophecies accompanied the steppe man from the first day to the very last. As soon as a child was born, he was immediately brought to Joly. These are people who could even, by just looking at the horse droppings, determine the quality of the horse. Similarly, looking at the child, they could determine his whole future and what kind of warrior he would be. And this is the main thing that worried parents. Fortune-telling was the most common way to find out the future of nomads. They used almost everything: fire, animal bones. But the most common was divination by small, smooth pebbles, kumalak, and special people, kumalakshi, used to do it. Sometimes beans were used instead of stones. It is believed that kumalak is nothing but mutton droppings. But this is not true. The thing is that pebbles for fortune tellers are similar in shape to a sheep's litter, so they are called like that. For the ceremony, 41 kumalak were always used. Divination process is very difficult. It requires not only a special gift from the fortune teller, but also mathematical abilities. After all, kumalakshi should remember and be able to calculate 3,841 variants of combinations that fall out in the process of alignment. Another very ancient and popular way to get a prophecy is fortune telling by a ram's shoulder.
На каждом уровне бытия кочевника находились провидцы, выполняющие свою роль. Скажем, Joly.
At every level of nomadic way of life, there were seers fulfilling their role. Joly, as a rule, they told fortune by the shoulder blades and helped botters. There was a botter named Jasibai. Once he was pursuing a detachment of the Dzungars, and then he decided to give his soldiers a short break. And along the way, he suggested that the Zhaorinshi should tell fortunes. The botter himself lay down on a stone, throwing his hand behind his head, and relaxed. And the Zhaorinshi saw the future on a shoulder blade. He began to tell what he saw. Usually predictions were made in poetic form, and the Zhaorinshi literally said the following: the botter found peace on a stone, but from the north the enemies aim at him with an arrow. And at the same moment, a Dzungarian arrow hit directly on Jasibai's forehead.
И в тот же момент прямо в лоб Жасибая попала джунгарская стрела.
Первым, кто описал гадание на лопатке,
The first to describe divination by a shoulder blade was Chokan Valikanov. According to the notes, first you had to eat cooked meat without touching the bones with your teeth. After that, the shoulder blade was thrown into the fire. It is important that there is no iron nearby. Kazakhs believed that iron is a magic metal and fortune-telling will not happen in its presence. After the blade was warmed up, it was pulled out of the fire. Seers told fortune according to the resultant cracks and intricate patterns. In this way, you could find out the result of the upcoming battle, or where the lost cattle were located. The shoulder blade could answer almost any question.
Были гадания по печени жертвенных животных.
There were fortune-telling by the liver of sacrificial animals. The liver was divided into sectors. Each sector corresponded to the zodiac sign, and according to different
Печень в разных секторах.
tubercles on this liver, in different sectors of the zodiac sign, predictions were made. We know that ancient cultures were literally obsessed with prophecies. For example, in ancient Rome, not one important state decision was complete without preliminary fortune-telling. They adopted this from their neighbors, Etruscans, who laid the foundations of the future Roman culture. So the Etruscans had a great many fortune-telling and the same great many priests who were responsible for these fortune-telling.
За эти гадания.
Of course, not only the inhabitants of the Great Steppe resorted to all kinds of ways to find out the future. World literature and mythology have brought to us many interesting stories that took place in different parts of the world thousands of years ago. The literary critic and connoisseur of mythology Valery Korotkov knows quite a lot about it.
Предсказания занимали очень важное место в древних культурах, не только в мифологии.
Predictions occupied a very important place in ancient cultures, not only in mythology. In mythology, for example, predictions are an indispensable element in the heroic epic. The same Homeric Odyssey. There, the Odyssey should go down to the underground kingdom, and this is a universal mythological motive in order to receive a prediction about his future fate from the blind old man Terese, who at that time was already in the kingdom of Hades, in the underground kingdom.
В царстве Аида, в подземном царстве.
According to one legend, the fate of one great empire was decided with the help of fortune-telling. It tells of how the ruler of Rome was chosen. They invited special fortune-tellers, augurs, in order to make a decision.
Если вспомнить легенду об основании Рима,
If you recall the legend about the foundation of Rome, they needed to make a decision about who will be the king of the new city, Romulus or Remus, since they were twins and it couldn't be decided according to seniority. The augurs intervened in their argument. They predicted by the flight of kites, royal birds, that Romulus should be the king, because 12 kites flew to Romulus instead of 6 that flew to Remus.
Рему. Отсюда, кстати, и
Hence we have this word inauguration. Inauguration is a statement of the candidacy of a new king by augurs after preliminary auspices, fortune-telling on birds.
гадания.
Another world-famous historical figure, the arbiter of fate and the shock of the universe, the great Genghis Khan, also used the services of foretellers. He had a shaman who was closest to Genghis Khan, with whom they were friends since their childhood.
Если мне не изменяет память, Пукачу.
If my memory serves me right, his name was Kokochu, and since their childhood, Kokochu already knew that his friend would become a great Khan, a great lord. The Kokochu shaman is mentioned in many historical sources. Allegedly, he possessed the greatest power, so powerful that Genghis Khan himself was in awe of him. Perhaps he was afraid that such a strong man would encroach on his throne.
Если говорить о позиции
If we talk about the position of this shaman Kokochu,
занятий,
It would be pointless to try to take the place of Genghis Khan because the spirits did not choose Kokochu. That is, the appointed, the chosen one was a certain person, and the shaman will do everything that the spirits tell him, what they will tell him to do in order to elevate this person to the throne. Nevertheless, according to the ancient chronicles, Kokochu was involved in the intrigues around the main power. It is not known whether the shaman foresaw his own death, but in the end, by the order of Genghis Khan, a trap was set up for him, and they broke his back. This method of reprisal, by the way, speaks of respect for the strength and power of the victim.
Если мы отталкиваемся от тюркского мира,
If we speak about the Turkic world, the Turkic Khaganates, or nomads as a whole, then historically there is not a single confirmed fact when a shaman, Kam, or any spiritual priest came to power. In general, there are many legends that say that the appearance of such a great ruler as Genghis Khan was foreseen long before his birth. For example, in the study of ancient Arabic chronicles, one interesting document was discovered. There were the records of the 13th century Persian statesman Muhammad Juvaini.
Сохранилось предсказание в документах арабского ученого-историка Джувейни, который пишет о том, что...
There is a prediction in the documents of the Arab scientist and historian Juvaini, who writes that even before Genghis Khan came to power, some men walked naked in the steppes in severe frosts and conveyed to everyone the predictions that all the power of the sky was given to Temujin, who was called Genghis Khan. And he came to rule the world and do good deeds.
Известно, что помимо предсказаний о будущем империи, сильных мира волновали пророчества.
It is known that in addition to predictions about the future of the empire, the world's powers were also worried about the prophecies about their fate and, more specifically, about death. We all know the story of prophetic Oleg when the Magi predicted his death from his own horse. Since then, Oleg never approached the animal. Although the horse was taken to a separate stable, he was fed and cared for until his death. Oleg decided to laugh at the Magi and ordered them to bring him to the place where the remains of the horse lay. Oleg put his foot on the skull of an animal, and a poisonous snake crawled out of it and stung the prince. Soon the prince passed away. The prophecy still came true. The famous Kazakh Batirs, Jibek and Otigan, although they were not seers, predicted to each other their fates. Otigan told Jibek that he would be buried in a noisy place, to which Jibek answered, "Oh, Otigan fearless, since you are afraid of noise and dust, you will remain underwater." And it came true. The grave of Jibek Batir is located in the largest metropolis of the country of Almaty. And the grave of Otigan was almost flooded during the filling of the Kapshiga reservoir. The descendants of the Batir reburied the body in the Kordai region in the village of Otigan.
Вообще, в ходе изучения этой темы мне удалось найти некоторые...
In general, while studying this topic, I managed to find some facts related to predictions about the inhabitants of the Great Steppe. As one of our experts states, such prophecies even exist in the Bible.
Одним из ярких пророчеств, касающихся кочевников,
One of the brightest prophecies regarding nomads coming from the mouths of neighboring peoples is the prophecy of Jeremiah. Open the Bible, chapter 3.8.
Библию, глава 3:8,
It sounds something like this.
примерно так.
For I will bring evil from the north and a great destruction. The lion is come up from his thicket. The whole city shall flee for the noise of the horsemen and bowmen. They shall go into thickets and climb up upon the rocks. Every city shall be forsaken, and not a man dwell therein. In this prediction, Jeremiah describes in detail all the consequences of this invasion. Says that houses will be burned, that these people will come and eat your figs and eat your children. Jeremiah claimed that it was God's punishment for the fact that the people were mired in sin. that the Jews were corrupted and lazy and could not resist the invaders who came to their land.
И действительно, чуть погодя, в 8 веке до нас
And indeed, a little later in the 8th century BC, there was a famous invasion of the Scythians, who penetrated into Western Asia through the Caucasus Mountains, went to the Middle East, turned everything upside down there. They ruled there for 28 years,
до Египта.
and having reached Egypt, only thanks to the gifts of the Pharaoh, did not return back. Coming up next, shocking dream prophecies.
Для того, чтобы гадать тем или иным образом, нужно...
In order to tell fortunes one way or another, you need special knowledge in various attributes.
Но есть более...
But there is an easier way.
Для того,
In order to
чтобы
know the future, you just need to go to bed and see a special dream.
видеть особенный сон.
There is a lot of evidence of prophetic dreams. So, for example, Napoleon once saw in a dream a bear who tore his chest and took out his heart. Bonaparte soon attempted to conquer Russia, which, as is well known, turned into collapse for him. The President of the United States of America, Abraham Lincoln, also had a prophetic dream. He had a closed coffin. A soldier was standing nearby. He asked him, "Who is in the grave?" To which the military replied that the murdered president was lying there. Later, Lincoln was actually shot. Similar stories happened thousands of years ago.
Есть такое.
There is such a tradition, we know it from Plutarch. On the eve of the murder of Julius Caesar, his wife Calpurnia had a terrible dream. She saw her husband's toga bloody. She dreamed that the ridge on the porch of their house had collapsed, and Plutarch writes that waking up, Calpurnia, with tears, begged her husband not to go to the Senate, but he neglected her warnings, her pleas, and yet he went to the Senate. And we know that on this day he received 23 stab wounds. According to the ideas of the nomads who worship the Tengri, a dream is a journey through 99 worlds. It's easy for an ordinary person to get lost in their labyrinths and not find answers to exciting questions. There was a special kind of soothsayers who could help.
Ежели во сне с того мира...
Sometimes during a dream, some information can come from the other world, information that is predictive of things. For example, I am more than sure that in a certain dream, there is an information that shows a way out of any situation. Just being in a dream and being under the emotional influence, a person pays attention to some things inside the dream, and they are clearly noticed in his head. That is, we may not notice some things in reality, and at which point either a hypnotist or a shaman helps, who finds out the reason for this. For deciphering dreams, one should turn to knowledgeable people, as a rule, who have hasiyat, a special gift. These are baxi, koribkel, shamans, clairvoyants, and so on. Or such people who are especially engaged with dreams. They're called tushi, dreamers. This is a person who you address with some kind of question, like any clairvoyant, but he does not fall into a trance or does not divine by a shoulder blade. He's falling asleep.
Он засыпает.
He falls asleep with your question, wakes up, and gives you an answer. Now many people use dream books, like I saw something in a dream, opened a book or Googled it. And here's a standard answer. But our ancestors did not have patterns for the interpretation of dreams.
Расшифровка сна никогда не укладывалась в некие какие-то догмы.
The decoding of sleep never fit into some kind of dogma or strict instructions. A dream is always connected with the current event of your life. And it's not so important what you dream about, what objects, but it's about what sensations you have during your dream, like joy, sadness, fear, or delight.
Радость где-то, страх.
And these feelings that you experience during sleep, you need to compare with current events in life, and accordingly, you will get the answer. Each dream must be considered individually and without any rigid dogmas, such as ready-made dream books.
Без каких-то жестких догм, типа готовых сонников.
To see a prophetic dream is half the battle. It's important to listen to it and, moreover, understand what exactly it portends. For this reason, every ruler always had people at court who knew how to do this. This is what the candidate of philological sciences, an expert in Kazakh folklore, Karajan Abayev, told us about.
У любого хана, у любого правителя, у него всегда были...
Any Khan and a ruler, he always had fortune tellers, foretellers, interpreters of dreams. And these dreamers, they first asked what happened before, what circumstances contributed to some particular dream. That is, they recognized the psychological motive and the environment in which such a dream could occur. And of course, they revealed some directions from the dream. They could predict political and military events, all kinds of climatic processes. It was also important how a person sleeps. In order for a dream to be correct and safe, the nomads had some rules.
Спящего человека обязательно нужно укрыть хоть чем-то, хоть какой-то, может быть, тонкой, если жарко.
A sleeping person must be covered with at least something, at least with some thin sheet or something like that, so that his aura is not exposed to any external influence. It was also believed that you mustn't fall asleep before sunset. It is 5-6 p.m. or up to 8 p.m. It is best not to fall asleep during this period. If you want to sleep, do it before or after, because during this period, it is believed that all dark forces are activated and a sleeping person can be attacked. It was also believed that you can't wake a person abruptly, because his consciousness resides in another world, and a person may simply not wake up because of fright, or he could lose something important that he currently sees in a dream. Coming up next, how did the Kazakhs fight bad dreams? And was Ablai Khan's dream prophetic?
Этой части жизни и традиций казахский народ...
The Kazakh people attached great importance to this part of life. There is one legend telling about how the future life of a person became dependent on the interpretation of sleep.
человека от толкования сна.
This ancient parable tells of a woman who saw in a dream that two wolves were tearing her apart. What she saw really frightened her, so in the morning the woman went to a nearby village to a wise Aksakal who knew how to interpret dreams.
Приехав к нему домой, я обнаружил, что его нет.
Approaching his house, she found out that he wasn't home. There was only his daughter-in-law, who volunteered to solve her problem. Allegedly, she often watched her father-in-law and can decipher any dream. So the woman told this girl about her dream. She was horrified and said, "Oh dear, be careful, you can be really attacked by wolves." In fear, this woman left the village. After a while, the shaman returned and asked his daughter-in-law, "Who came in my absence?" And his daughter-in-law told the story about a woman's dream. Then the shaman became very angry. He said, "What have you done? You can't do that. Go after this woman and tell her that this dream is good and that she will have 2 sons, 2 batirs, who will defeat all enemies." Daughter-in-law rode off after the woman, but unfortunately in the steppe she found only the body of this woman torn to pieces. What is this talking about? That sleep cannot be interpreted directly. Often the events or the setting, the scenery, the characters in the dream are not at all connected with our reality. But first of all, this is some hint. And secondly, a positive interpretation is of great importance.
Нельзя трактовать впрямую. Часто события, обстановка, декорации, случаются вообще не связаны с очень во-вторых,
Different cultures have their own ways to ward off a bad omen from sleep. The ancient Greeks, for example, went to temples immediately after awakening, and the Egyptians told cats about their bad dreams. Yes, there are certain signs, there are certain dreams that it is advisable not to speak out loud. There's such a sign. That is, if a person saw a bad dream, it's necessary. Well, in cities now people open the tap, and in the past they went to the stream or to the river and told their dreams to the river. This dream must be heard by anyone, because a person was afraid that this dream could come true, and so they went to water. And water, with its structure, it took away this nightmare so that it would not come true. History knows another example when the dream of a great man entered the annals of a whole nation. The plot and interpretation of this dream still cause heated debate. This is about the dream of the great Ablai Khan. The old interpreter, some believe it was Bukhar Jirao, although it is not known for sure. Ablai Khan says, first, on the threshold of my yurt, a tiger lay down. Then I looked around and saw that it was not a tiger, but it was a bear. After some time, I saw that it was not a bear, but it was a wolf. Then I looked around again and saw that it was not a wolf, but a fox. Then this fox turned into a hare. As there are many different retells of Ablai Khan's dream, so there are many of his interpretations. According to one version, Ablai Khan acted as a tiger who achieved strength and greatness. But soon he and his people faced a difficult test, not passing which the Kazakhs could lose their former strength and glory.
Медведи, говорит, это те низшие, после вас следующие.
Bears are those people who come after you, who occupy posts and during their time strife will begin. That is, bear times are coming. And then he says, the people will generally go down even more because there will be a time for wolves. Wolves will tear each other apart. It will be a bloody, harsh time, but we will not see this time.
Суровое время, но мы этого время уже не увидим.
Further, there will be a time of foxes when people cheat, deceive, and use deception for their own selfish purposes. It will be the time of the foxes. And lately, it will be a time of heirs when fear and uncertainty will settle in the souls of people. Historians are still trying to establish the authenticity of this legend and the name of the interpreter of sleep because we don't know for sure if it was Bukhar Jirao. So far, the researchers have not given a clear result, and there are only assumptions. It is possible that this prediction was interpreted much later, after the death of Ablai Khan, and is not entirely true. As for example, it was with the predictions of Nostradamus. It is already reliably known that the same verse, or as it is called by Nostradamus, quatrain, has several interpretations which are strikingly different from each other, and perhaps the meaning of these prophecies is simply tailored to the particular situation that happened many centuries later. But on the territory of the Great Steppe back in 250 BC, prophecies were made that our historians were able to study. This is told by Arman Nurmagomedov.
В эпической традиции кочевников, по крайней мере документально,
In the epic tradition of nomads, from the Parthian times, some traces of prophecies are traced. For example, when the Arsak and Teridot, birthing from Paran, two Saka brothers sweeping away the heirs of Alexander the Great from the thrones they occupied in Asia, created a giant Parthian empire.
Парфянскую империю. В этот период возникли письменные памятники, которые
During this period, written monuments appeared that prophesied that such difficult times would come that the horsemen would become unmounted and the unmounted would become horsemen. What does this mean? According to some interpretations, in those days, a commoner was a person who did not have a horse, so to speak, a simple pedestrian. For a nomad, losing his horse, it meant a great misfortune, since their culture was nomadic and the whole life depended on horses.
Я думаю, как раз эти времена и настали кочевников.
I think these times have come. About 100 years ago, the nomads became pedestrians, and accordingly, the pedestrians are in their limousines, flying on airplanes. They became a kind of riders. That is, the time of the apocalypse has come. Coming up next, Apocalypse, Fate or Choice. What did the Kazakh Nostradamus say?
Во все времена было модно предсказывать конец света.
At all times, it was common to predict the end of the world. In almost every generation, a seer appeared who promised us all an apocalypse. But there was always the hope of avoidance. Hope is an integral part of our psyche. People in general have a fear of the future. Most people have a fear for the future and a fear of life. Although, well, it may be paradoxical, we think that we are afraid of death, and often people live with fear of life. That is why most likely people are looking for soothsayers who, like a crutch, would support, would help to make important decisions, ease the burden of responsibility for their lives. But there were times when the seers were not only not listened to, but also persecuted.
Все мы знаем объективные события 20 века – это вот глобальный агрессивный торжествующий атеизм. Я не имею ничего.
We all know the events of the 20th century. This is a global, aggressive, triumphant atheism. I have nothing against signs, but it's just that some people's beliefs, their ideas were uprooted, and people with a spiritual tradition were consciously and purposefully destroyed. Their activities were ridiculed and simply subjected to persecution. The appearance of a huge number of scammers speculating on human curiosity and even troubles and tragedies contributed a lot to this. Mediums, soothsayers, magicians, and sorcerers have become extremely popular in society. The peak of such a craze came at the end of the 19th century. In Europe and Russia, there were a dime a dozen of the salons of mediums, lots of spiritualistic sessions took place. A wave of interest in the other world swept over people, and the vast majority of the so-called prophets and spiritualists were ordinary people with an unusual passion for fame and money. Then, after the October Revolution in Russia, the situation changed. War was declared against religion and any manifestation of witchcraft and sorcery. Soviet power fought against such people with special fears. At the very beginning of its formation, religious institutions were destroyed. Priests were either shot or sent to prisons or labor camps. The bearers of ancient wisdom and traditions, shamans, Baksi, Kumalakshi, and the like, also suffered such fate. In this step, the carriers of this spiritual system were simply destroyed. Well, imagine that everyone who knows how to play football would be shot. Will it be possible to win world championships against this background? Accordingly, all seers, not all of them, the majority, shamans, sals, seri, were not only under the Soviet regime, but during the Russian colonization either were humiliated or deprived of any material forms of survival. Accordingly, tradition began to fade. But on the other hand, it has not completely disappeared. That is, there was an impact on the material part, directly on the carriers and on the consciousness of the entire audience. People were impressed that it was superstition, the night of ignorance, that believing in such things was childishness, and on the other hand, carriers were destroyed. It is impossible to destroy all people who know their history and keep traditions. Little by little, this ancient knowledge was preserved in separate families, in distant villages. But people were afraid and hid their abilities. The new government considered the shamans to be paranoid, obscurantists, oppressors of the people, and remnants of the past. Rumors have been specially circulated about shamans that they are carriers of sexually transmitted diseases. Moreover, those who did not want to give up their beliefs were deprived of all civil rights. The notorious 1937 was the most severe year. Many practicing shamans were shot. The fear of violence for a long time blindfolded the spiritual eye of people. They were forced to humble themselves and lie low. It's very important for us to belong to something higher. It is programmed within us. It is our survival instinct. I will explain why. Previously, our ancestors, they survived by the herd and the collective. And if someone was removed from this team, expelled, for that person it was like a death sentence because he would not have survived. But times have changed. The Soviet Union collapsed, the old ideology was destroyed, and the new one was only being established. A variety of seers again entered the scene. Vanga Juna, Anatoly Kashpirovsky, Alan Chumak, Yuri Longo, and hundreds of others, supposedly enlightened, began to treat people on TV, assemble stadiums, prophesy the future of entire states. As for the prophets in Kazakhstan, some people appeared who began to claim that they were children of the gods, that their gift was a gift from their ancestors, and gave hundreds of other reasons to consider them enlightened ones. As it turned out, almost none of them had any relation to the ancient Kazakh methods of healing and prophecy. Just dishonest dealers from the esoteric world took advantage of people's trustfulness, studied ancient traditions, and simply began to deceive the people with the aim of enrichment. In fact, they did not possess any abilities other than commercial. But still, after decades, there remained those who really preserved the light of ancient knowledge.
Непосредственно этот дар, кассиет, снисходит свыше, вне желания человека. И даже если были напрямую уничтожены носители,
This gift itself, hasiyat, it descends from above beyond the will of man. And even if carriers were directly destroyed, the very force that allowed people to prophesy influence events, this force didn't go anywhere. There are people who definitely know their mission, their life path. They understand that they have come to this world in order to help other people, to provide any help, and they do this out of these motives. And today, this force continues to be present.
в силу одной причины. Пока шел
It is not obvious only for one reason.
атеизм.
For now, the audience continues to believe in the atheist attitudes, but soothsayers, prophets continue to live, and perhaps they are currently somewhere near you, walking along the street, working with you in the same team. They just do not want to be ridiculed.
Работают с вами в одном.
Or if something bad awaits you, they prefer not to talk about it.
Или если вас ждет что-то плохое, они предпочитают об этом не говорить.
Why is man so eager to find out his future, look beyond the bounds of time and see what awaits him? These issues in the modern world are not dealt with by shamans, bhakti, or paranormalists. Now, psychology can answer these questions. Natalia Sanarova, a practicing psychologist, comments on this aspect of our life.
Может быть, очень много разных.
A person may have many psychological traumas, as a result of which he's trying to find something in the future so that he can lean, be secure, control, understand how to solve it. For example, a person may be afraid of his own decision. That is, he once decided something and his decision led to some tragic events. Accordingly, he will be afraid to make decisions after that, and he will try to go ahead. That is, he may try to look forward whether this decision will lead to something good or bad. And so people tend to believe in some kind of prophecies, fortune-telling, or something like that. In recent years, many articles about the Kazakh Nostradamus have appeared in the media. They're about Monke, philosopher, poet, and seer who lived in the 17th century. True prophecies have made Monke famous since childhood. His predictions, which he gave in a poetic form, were not recorded but preserved in the memory of people, passed from mouth to mouth.
Есть среди множества
Among the many prophecies of Monke, one is frightening. It is not known how accurately it was preserved in the people's memory, but it is worth hearing anyway.
услышать.
This is how it sounds.
Звучит.
They will live in large complex buildings. The powers will be replaced. People will gather every month at meetings that will not be of any use. The sons will be stupid, the daughters will become naughty, and daughter-in-law will argue with the elders. People will drink yellow water, which even dogs avoid, but people will crave for it. A man and a woman will quarrel like a cat and a dog. Your younger brother will turn into melancholy, faith will become many-sided, your tongue will be variegated, and your relatives will not help you in difficult times. A horse will become an unattainable star, a sheep will become expensive, a woman will become equal with the men, and the lake with the sea. They will not look for the owner of the lost thing. They will not repay debts. The end of the world will be near, and the earth will become flat. And money will become paper. Children will become orphans. Women will become lecherous. They will bear their charms. Shame will become commonplace, and there will be no way to fix it.
Эти слова звучат грустно, но правдиво. Мы сейчас с вами наблюдаем...
These words sound sad but true. We're now observing everything that Monke once spoke of, but can it be fixed? After all, why are these predictions given to us? Maybe so that we can choose a different path. As long as there are people who keep the experience of dozens of generations and share this wisdom with us without fear, we have a future, another future, which is good and bright. My name is Andrei Slozhin. It was the Time Puzzle. See you.